Hello, and welcome to the season finale of HardpinLabs Live, an interactive space for creators, campaigns, organizations who want to sharpen their storytelling, create content that really connects. Think of it as an open lab where we share what we've learned, trade best practices, and bring in experts who help you push your content further. Remember, you can submit your questions at any time by going to hardpin.live and join our second screen experience by going to full.hardpin.live if you're on your computer, or event.hardpin.live if you're on your mobile phone. Really excited about our panelists today. We're bringing in a ton of institutional knowledge and expertise, starting with Rachel Campbell, the founder and CEO of our partner company, Novel Messaging. She brings her expertise in building innovative, integrated, multi-channel strategies for today's ever-changing media landscape. The perfect guest to talk about 2026 and what it's going to take to win. Joining her is Josh Burstein, our good friend and Emmy-winning journalist, comedian, and former Obama digital strategist. He was the creative director for the 2024 DNC convention and recently ran for DNC vice chair to champion messaging modernization. He's been a dear friend of the pen since our inception, and I'm excited to have him bring his expertise to Labs Live. And rounding out our panel is Tommy Hogum, our supervising producer who handles a lot of our political work. He brings a decade of experience to that space and has done a ton of great work in recent election cycles for Hardpin. So it'll be great to bring his expertise to this conversation as well. Thank you all for joining us today. Really excited about this conversation to sort of wrap up the year with our final HardpinLabs Live. And for those folks watching right now, don't flip your screen. We are in a vertically optimized version of the show. This is a social first live stream. Very excited to try this out. And if you're curious, that QR code on the screen lets you also submit questions. So if you'd like to do that, that's another way you can submit questions to us in real time, and we'll make sure those get put into our question queue. To kick things off, there is actually a little bit of a connection here between our guests. Both Josh and Rachel were heavily involved in the convention back in 2024, running a lot of the cool and innovative new programs that were part of that convention. So I'd love to just dive into that and sort of reminisce before we dive into the forward-looking questions. Let's look back and remember a convention that did offer some hope and optimism for a fall that could potentially go a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a different time for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I've mentioned many times it was the last time we were all truly happy. And I think Rachel and I have connected since, but it really was one of these like 400-meter dash of a sprint where we got to try out a lot of new things and stuck the landing, held our side of the bargain, and would just really love more excuses to collaborate at that level of purpose and impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all lived through it and everyone was like, "Oh, this went well." And that's great and that's the outcome we wanted. And I just want to shout out Josh, and there were some other folks on the ground too. I should mention Kiana Mackey Nance, who was our partner for the work we were doing, and there were a lot of great people on the ground who made that, like, "Oh, this turned out well," made that experience happen for so many viewers, which was really actually insane what you pulled off. And we were happy to help. A team of novel strategists contributed, but really it was you folks on the ground driving a lot of it. And, you not only led the first ever content creator program where more than 200 content creators from across the country came to convention, were given behind the scenes access, exclusive access that they had never received at something like that before. That was incredible to design, conceive of, and then execute that program. That was the piece we helped out with. But then, Josh, you were doing so many other things that I don't think enough people realize how different and exciting it was. Like all of the original content you were producing, there was comedy stuff, there was the blue carpet, there was a bunch of different stuff.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, it was, I think, a really good case study of what can happen when you empower digital forward, social conscious like strategists to make cool stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you. And I'm not gonna take all the credit. I know that like Lynn and Elle and I were able to, with Kiana's leadership, just do the, 200 new Joe Rogans of the left, find these creators and help nurture their experience because it was a first for everyone involved, and
Right.
then be that sort of liaison to um, confused, scared, but interested, comms directors that are built to mitigate risk and be like, are they going to make, Tony Evers dance on this TikTok? It's like, no, just be a human. We're gonna help you win, okay? And so I think that that really was sort of a aha moment for a lot of folks that for all the conversations we're about to have, I think tee up, this was working, this is good, and here's so many ways we could have made it better. I wish we didn't have to wait 4 years to
Right.
get another chance to do that. And that's actually what brought me to Chicago for this convention, because I had been telling my friends that at the DNC, like, because I did video in 2016, which I guess was the last time we had that chance in real life. And so that was the other side of the track, which was we just have all the amazing resources of the happenstance of the real people impacted by good or shitty policies, the people trying to enact them, all the most passionate influencers of every type. And so like, what can we do to create vehicles because they're here, because they're all like inclined to say yes and make moments. So yeah, and we shouldn't forget that Simon, you were also there,
Yeah.
helping
Uh,
tell the
I,
tape.
I
And
was I was there
yeah,
excitedly putting together the highlight pieces for all the days, and also just was just blown away by, again, knowing what it took behind the scenes for you guys and some of the other teams to do what we were doing with very limited resources. I know, Josh, you had a lot of volunteers working with you. Rachel,
yeah.
you were basically a volunteer, even though you were basically running a major part of the
Also,
program
sorry,
behind the scenes.
I never left that building. Like I lived in the United Center
Yeah.
and I put 25,000 steps in dress shoes like
Yeah.
every day. It was
Nice.
really just everywhere, everything all at once. And I love it. I live for that, to be in that flow state and feel like, you have an opportunity to have consequence and something bigger than yourself, right? And make a lot of
Hmm.
new friends along the way.
And eat a lot of chicken tenders and
So many chicken
Exclusively
tenders.
chicken tenders. Lucas of lukewarm. They weren't
yeah.
that bad. But yeah.
No, they were fine. They were very serviceable chicken tenders, but it was a lot of chicken tenders, for sure. Um,
Taste of Chicago.
exactly. Yeah, no, the one thing I'll add to this, just because I do think it's sort of the true of a lot of what we sometimes do on the Democratic side of things, is we do these amazing things and then there's no real account of what went into it, and it sort of gets thought of from scratch again in 4 years, instead of like really applying the lessons learned and pushing some of these new parts of it forward. I know, ironically, Rachel and I had started talking about convention creative like 2.5 years ahead of time, and didn't get to put any sort of substance behind that conversation until, a couple of months out. And then even it was like, well, we'll have to wait until we get a little closer to really confirm what we're able to invest in. So
Mm.
that was a fun part of the process. But I do think, again, like when it all came together, the folks doing the main show, all of the content happening behind the scenes, all those things, it was a really, really, really impressive convention. And that was like probably the moment where I was like, yeah, this is still possible. And obviously, history played out in a different way, but I do think there's a lot to hopefully build on. And I'm hopeful that um, you know a lot of that work that went into the creator programs and all those things just become a bigger piece of the convention, and sort of the programming around the convention
I
in
yeah,
the
I feel
years.
like the other part of integrating creators into the actual program was obviously a first. And
Yeah.
it was a little sophomoric to start in terms of what was being passed down as like opportunities. So to your point, like it's nice to dream about it and talk about it now, and we should have more postmortem of the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Mhm.
But the biggest challenge in any of this is when do you get to do that again? We always are a lack of time, a lack of resources. It's not the same team. We build amazing companies that IPO for one day in November, and then win or lose, we immediately bankrupt the thing. And so it's just hard to really keep any of that cohesiveness, um, especially when it seems like the same mediocre people stay at the top and get to make the decisions all over again. So it's very Groundhog's Day with this, and I have no opinions on the matter.
On that note, let's start looking forward. And before we get to the talks of a 2028 convention, obviously we have the midterms approaching, or midterm year approaching, with lots to think about. There it does feel like there's some positive momentum coming off of this past November, but obviously not enough to sort of inspire any, or this should not inspire us to do less. It should inspire us to do more going into 2026. And this is what we're here to talk about today. So with that, we're going to jump into our first question from the audience. This one comes to us from Steven. How should we be thinking about quantity versus quality when it comes to content creation, especially when it comes to social media platforms, sort of, I assume, as they exist today? Anybody want to tee us off here? Rachel, thoughts?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. Um, to try and like shorthand it, it's been my experience that most people let concerns about quality impact the quantity that they are publishing. And so by no means am I saying quality doesn't matter. Quality does matter, but I think my observation in working in progressive spaces and with directly with candidate campaigns and issue advocacy and nonprofits that do impact work, it's honestly an obsession over perfection that holds people back way more than oh, you're putting too much content that's bad out. Like it's if I could like pick out one thing, I would tell most people publish more, and it's okay if it's
Hmm.
not perfect. Especially candidates, like
Mhm.
candidates specifically, doing more direct to camera, being on camera regularly, and treating social media as your own broadcast network where you can go direct to your voters daily, and treating it that way, I think would serve more candidates better than what we're doing now.
Sure.
I
Josh, anything to add
concur.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, rather than thinking about quality and quantity, it is consistency that is key. So,
Mm,
what is the format that's going to allow your candidate or yourself to do it most consistently? Because that's what the algorithm is asking you to do. You should be posting daily at minimum, and probably the easiest on-ramp to that is just training yourself or a candidate to take whatever their tweet is, which was already their, wonky, pithy press release put into a sentence, and now just deliver that on camera, whether that's in your car or at your house or selfie mode, whatever is just the absolute MVP model that gets somebody who does not do this natively familiar with it. And to Rachel's point, very few people are doing it too much right now. I would love to then build up to quality. I do think there's a lot of slop out there and a lot of mediocre content and a lot of people that beyond even millennial pause are still like, hi, I am this. Like it's like they have like an old camcorder and they just got caught in the home video and they turn and like wave to start off their piece of content. It's
Okay,
like,
but that might actually be funny in a kitschy way.
I would like that. You know what? Let me go dial my friend real quick and
nice.
see what's going on.
Of course, you have a prop, Josh.
I'm working with what the co-working space has provided.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
think, and Tommy and I deal with this a little bit in some of our work. I think that people put pressure on themselves to like make things perfect, and then that holds them back from like doing the high volume that we really would like to see. But I also think I'm thinking about Rachel Carton's link in bio, which is like fastly becoming sort of gospel for folks who work in social media. And she has written about like Instagram Premium, this kind of like as sort of traditional TV collapses and more entertainment content makes its way onto social media, there is kind of like this new genre of high quality, like higher production value content that people are producing and publishing direct to social, as basically more and more people treat social media as TV and just watch
Right.
it for entertainment, watch it for news. There are more and more people producing higher quality content direct for social. And I think that is like a new genre that no one in politics is even really exploring in real ways, except maybe Zoran's team did this in some interesting ways. And I think we'll probably, I'm sure his name will come up many times today. But I do think like most people are not even doing the high volume, don't worry too much about quality stuff. We need to get that going first. And then we can even have more exciting conversations about how to layer on additional higher quality,
Exactly.
more produced stuff. And the short answer is we need all of it. We need it now.
Yes, I
Mhm.
literally you took the words out of it because I was going to add to this conversation a thing that you and I talk about all the time, which is like you should be doing all of it. You
All
should
of
be
it,
doing
all of the
all of it.
above.
Like this is what you need. This is, I mean, we just talked about the convention. Like what worked about the convention? We did all of it. We did the high quality stuff. We did the stage show stuff. We did the behind the scenes, the digital, the creator, like all of it. And people should be thinking about their campaign in the same way. And the thing that I would add, and I love Josh, your word consistency is like what consistency does is it allows you to first break through, but it also ritualizes connection with your audience, right? Like they expect to see you, they see you more, the algorithm begins to pull you more to them, and that gives you better visibility for those moments to do something bigger, more produced, more thought out. But you got to get, you can't start with that sort of tent pole thing, or that like piece of viral, make a viral launch video or whatever. Like those days are gone. I mean, I don't know when they were last here, but it's been a while. And yeah, I just think it is like you have to know how to really be consistent. And I think that again, that's a great word. And you have to figure out ways to do all of the things. You got to make the
Yeah.
personal video content. You got to be creative in how you find other opportunities to talk. The Zoran example, again, great. Like you look at his early stuff, man on the street, very lo-fi, just talking to people, establishing his brand, and then over time, really building towards these high visibility moments. The what was it? The scavenger hunt in Manhattan, like all of those things. Those don't happen like if it's the only thing he does. Like those only
Mhm.
matter and sort of have the visibility they have because he was building towards those moments. So yeah, I think consistency is the key and you got to do it all.
I have
Well,
a
and
provocative take on this, if to round it out, if you don't mind.
Ooh, Tommy's
Well,
here for the hot takes.
here for the hot takes. Ted Cruz in 2016 modeled his campaign after the Obama campaign, which I thought was a sort of humble thing to say, to base your campaign on the Democratic president at the time. And he won Iowa, and then the Trump train ran over him. But if
Mhm.
I'm just a maker. I don't push things out. I just make stuff. But I would study Brad Parscale, who is the Trump's digital director 2016, 2020, 2024, or 20,
Mhm.
yeah, 2024. Uh, Kind of a genius. And he sort of invented just like the everything everywhere all the time approach. Like the amount it's in the hundreds of thousands or millions of ads that he pushed out through iteration and A/B testing and just going everywhere. And I think to myself, oh, to be an unscrupulous ad maker, like we can't just put stuff out that's wrong and like bad and all that stuff. But uh, I think we could take a note from Brad Pascal. All right, back to it.
well, what I will credit, yeah, is As far as organic content, very few people have the patience to actually stick with it and nurture it. So when we say everything all the time, you don't have all the time because you want them to be on call time and all the other crap. And it's just, it sucks. I can't even post once a day if that's my core job as a
Right.
creator. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. But, the go viral moment of like seeing is believing. Imagine what happens when all of a sudden you get that one hit, little spike, and you realize how much better this was than like spending your entire comm strategy to get like one op-ed piece placed. And all of a sudden, you got your comms director, you got your principal thinking like, well, what is the thumbnail? What's the title going to be? How are we going to hook them? What's the entry point? Like, are we going to loop it at the end? What do we like? It's like if we are able to institutionalize smarter digital strategy and these social tactics in like top down, there's actual potential for getting to like, yeah, let's make a scavenger hunt and let's like really, get weird with it because we're now more risk averse and having fun and joy and being authentic. And that will also, I think, show in the way that the candidate shows up in the paid media and more traditional ads as well, be less stilted.
Totally.
Yeah, I think the through line here for me is surprise, social media is a job. It's an actual job that deserves staff and resources and budget
Yeah.
and not
Should
just
probably
like
be managed by your like 19-year-old intern. I think, yeah.
it's not it's a core function. And this is the piece that I do think listen, I think the Trump campaign, to the winner goes the spoils and the winners get to write history, right? So like
Mhm.
there's been a lot made of like the genius of their work and some of that's deserved and some of it's not. It's also sorry, like just to contrast that against like we're having this conversation right now in our own party about like an obsession with testing and over testing. And so like, there's just it's always interesting how these, if you do it and you win, you're a genius. And if you do it and you lose, you're an idiot, right? But setting that aside, the through line is they were really smart about taking social media seriously and built a bunch of different types of content that met people where they were. And we just
Yeah.
kind of didn't prioritize that in the same way, like frankly. And what Josh is talking about, the through line there too, is giving people space to think about this and not making this one of six hats that they're wearing, right? And a candidate can't think about this all day long, but guess what? You really only need like 20 to 30 minutes to film a great video. And no matter how much call time anyone's doing, they can find 20 or 30 minutes to stand in front of a camera and deliver a script or to do a silly trend or whatever. It doesn't take that much time, but it does take a staffer who gets that this is
Mm.
their job and who is given the space and the support to do it. And that like I feel like I feel like crazy sometimes when I talk about this because literally most campaigns still just don't have a full-time dedicated social media manager. That's just not a norm on a lot of campaigns, and that's changing, and some are doing this well and some aren't. But like we have to start that's where the bar is right
Yeah.
now for us.
Yeah. And
I
to
have a
add
lot
to,
of candidates
oh, go ahead.
that really care about this and want to get the Zoran and do the things and are like,
Yeah.
oh, you do good this, give me that. And then as far as like the amount, like to show how much you care, we're talking about less than 1% of their entire budget
Totally.
on organic
Mhm.
content. So it's like we're still going with the scraps because
Right.
they're not actually emphasizing the right stuff, right? And we
Totally.
know that, but like I don't know what it takes when my biggest, easiest rant is the average MS Now program is getting 50,000 viewers at any given time, and most of it is idle in a nursing home or an airport, right? And then the Tribune's getting 70,000 print right now. And that doesn't mean that's not for nothing, and there's a whole lot of optics involved. But this is one terrible Liz Plank post from like totally like 3x success, or more importantly, one amazing blogger out of Erie, Pennsylvania that you've been nurturing this relationship for, who maybe only has 4,000 Facebook friends, but that is an influencer in the modern age. That's probably your most important influencer that you should be having a press secretary, reaching out to and figuring out ways to engage.
Yeah.
So End rant.
No, I look, just to put a button on this before we get to the next question. I think to those collective points, like Rachel, your point is so important here, that it's like you need somebody who's like professionally thinking about this and managing it, because it doesn't always have to be sit your candidate in front of a camera for 15 minutes every day. You can do long form pieces of content and get your queue filled with
Right.
bite-sized pieces of content,
Great
and
idea.
and then and have a week of content ready to serve. There are all of these creative ways to do that, whether it's again doing long form, doing follow content, all of that. But you need somebody in charge that isn't, again, the cliche of like, my cousin's nephew who's following me with a phone or whatever. It has to be somebody with real understanding of these platforms, understands that, cross posting, all of these things that are so important and so vital for maximizing reach. So yeah, there's a lot there, but I think at the end of the day, that the thing I would point to is it needs real investment. We've been beating that drum forever. And Josh, to your point, like where eyeballs are today, it's in these spaces. It's in on the platforms. It's the folks that understand how to sort of game these algorithms, and that is changing all the time. And so you have to be paying attention to what is impacting them. Great. All right. And as if scripted here, our next question is actually about Zoran Mamdani. So let me bring that up here. Can you talk about Zoran Mamdani's success in New York and how that came about? Where else do you see Democrats or even Republicans leveraging social as effectively? Thoughts on this? This is, Josh, do you want to kick us off, since you're sort of in New York right now? You're in the
Welcome
heart
to
of
Zoran
Mamdani
country.
world,
Yeah. Yeah.
starting January 1st.
Well, I would say he's one of the few candidates that does not need my help, but I was happy to knock doors and get engaged early and rock my Zoran bandana. But you know, this is the thing. People are going to continue to look to him and learn the wrong lessons. I would say the number one sad truth is he's got Riz that made everything else easier. If you have a good candidate, these tactics look a hell of a lot better. So I don't wish running for office on anyone. And there's a reason that Democrats and Republicans can't necessarily attract the best and brightest based on the fresh hells that they have to deal with every day as the focal point. But, you know, what made sense, it was that he wasn't necessarily even digital first. It was just that they valued it. He was digitally native, good at it.
Right.
They were doing more immersive stuff instead of just the stock copy paste, work. I would say, just as far as the creative, it was working with creators helps to be in New York where there's a lot of great folks, and sort of just be a pre-established media literate person from his entire upbringing and rap career. Uh, and I think we can speak to like Gabby having a couple new tricks up her sleeve that just needed to be adopted as a proof of concept of how this could work on every campaign. But when you really just break down like what he's doing right now, uh, let's roll out our new cabinet. They're just pictures, but hey, how hard was it to get like a jersey made and make it feel like a national signing day for like football draft, right? Like let's make the like involvement in New York and the pride in New York as much as you would have it for the Jets or Giants, which you shouldn't have any pride in right now anyway, right? So here's something to focus on. And that was pointed at you, Simon.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to stop you there. We're not talking about the Jets on this. That's a different podcast.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all that's right. I think you start with a really solid foundation of a really strong candidate, the Riz, the cultural competence, and the media literacy that comes with a candidate who's hip to these mediums and knows how to
Mhm.
work with them. But I do also want to call out that I think there are some like very tactile structural pieces that I think that they did that other people can copy,
Yeah.
and aren't for the most part. So one, and Josh, I'm just echoing something you've already said earlier, but the consistency, like Zoran didn't become Zoran overnight. Zoran had been making content regularly on social for months, if not years, as a member of the state assembly before anything really like got legs or took off. Also, another quick asterisk. I think it really helps when you talk about things that people care about. So, like when you talk about lowering people's costs in an era of record high costs, and when you talk about affordability and free childcare and free buses and all the things, like I don't want to like shortcut the message itself matters here too. So messenger is a piece, message matters, but then jumping back to the pieces other people can copy, consistency. It didn't happen really overnight. There was definitely a period where like the flywheel started spinning at a different level and
Mhm.
they caught traction, but there was a lot of time invested before then.
Yeah.
Second, they did resource this. They did invest in this. It wasn't just a kid or one
Mhm.
person on staff. They hired a team, like in-house resources and external consultants. There were external consultants. I mean, listen, I wasn't on the team. I don't know, but I've looked at the finance reports and it looks like they were paying external consultants whose job was primarily, seemingly, just to focus on cool videos to make. The
Mhm.
idea of most campaigns putting someone on an 8 to 10K a month retainer to just conceive of videos feels like nonsense to most Democrats, but like
Mhm.
that's what they did.
Mhm.
Guess what? It worked. And
Yeah.
then, and I do want to shout out Gabi Zutrow, who we actually just had a conversation with on our podcast, Novel Ideas, about her work for the campaign. And a lot of her work focused on the use of ManyChat, which is a tool that lets you basically pull folks from your social audience into offline action, or pulls them
Mhm.
through DMs and automated workflows, pulls them into becoming donors or volunteers, which is something that most campaigns, even those that really build strong online audiences, they often struggle to pull folks offline into other types of engagement. And I think Gabi's work really, you know, kicked the door open on how we can do that differently. So they did. I mean, I think the shorthand is like they prioritized it. They hired good people. They spent money, and surprise, that's how you get good results.
They also hired people who were not the same political hacks. It's not to
Right.
say that you don't need to value experience as folks who've gone through 5 presidential cycles, but the fact that they were getting good storytellers that were just pure good ad men and women, as you said, investing in that, having that kind of stuff on retainer. Um, and
Yeah.
and what you're saying about messaging discipline is so key. That's I think more than the tactics, because yes, I love the evangelizing of ManyChat, but also just there were 3 parts of his platform that every New Yorker knew and people outside New
Mhm.
York knew, and it was written on everything along with his name. And I think that just being able to find 100 different ways to make 100 different videos and show up in 100 different places about affordability, about free buses, about other things like you said that people like, that works in Montana. It's just a different conversation, right? And um,
Can I ask you about the three things, Josh?
yes,
You think we're moving into a world where you can say things that are not necessarily definitely going to happen, but they're directionally what you want, like they're your pie in the sky ideas that you don't think will actually become actionable? Because drain the
Like
swamp,
build a wall.
build a wall.
Yeah.
What was the third thing? He had three things. Whatever Trump's third thing was, it
make
was like
America.
make
Freeze the
America great again.
rent.
Make America
Free,
great again.
Yeah.
And the three things for Zohan are free buses,
freeze the
keep the
rent,
wall,
affordable
blah, blah, blah.
childcare.
Yeah.
Like we get wrapped around the axle about being so precise in our language in some
Yeah.
campaigns about like, well, that's not actually possible. But do people need you to say what is actually possible? They go, no, no, no. I know what he means. He means he's looking out for me, Zoran. Like, what do you think about that?
It's a great question. I do feel like because so many people, including when I was trying to get on board to vote for Zoran, were like, well, can he even do any of this? He's just a kid. He doesn't know anybody in City Hall, like blah, 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 blah. Nobody gives Elon Musk shit for not following through on his crazy ass ideas or missing his timeline. I 100% believe that if you're not going to get stabbed in the back from Albany and deal with the affronts of DC, that Zoran can make these things be enacted in a reasonable timeline. If it doesn't happen, I mean, that's what you campaign to sell the vision. It is the reason Bernie's been saying the same thing for 30 years. And so I
He's a
do
good
think
example. What he
you
says is
need, yeah,
unrealistic, but
yeah,
people believe what he's saying. They go,
yeah,
and I think they just go, I know, it's not going to Medicare, all it's not going to happen, but he's
yeah.
looking out for the
Well,
healthcare.
It could happen, and I'd rather be going in that direction of like
Yes.
meaningful change than start from an extreme compromise while also being someone who knows you need to work within Washington to like make shit happen, or for this case, City Hall. So yeah, I hate that in the like attention span economy, it probably makes more sense to be able to know your platform in 9 words or less. Um, but that's where we're at, and you should be able to back it up with a 1,000-page wonky policy document.
I would just add here, I think the part of it for me too is what makes those things work to sort of like pull it all together a little bit from my perspective at least, is it has to be authentic. And I think the way it becomes authentic is it is consistent. It is something that you are consistently speaking to. And I think for Mamdani, he does, I think if you listen to him, he has a roadmap for how he wants to achieve these goals. And he's very exact about those things. Whether he actually gets to do those things with Albany and all those things, I think that is a true reality. But I think he's authentic. It's clear that he wants to do these things. The people that voted for him believe that he wants to do these things. And I think that's the important thing. Or just to your point about Bernie Sanders, I think people believe Bernie Sanders is genuine, that he thinks these things that he is advocating for will improve people's lives, would change America for the better. In the same way that Trump, I think people would argue that Trump truly believes that building a wall, draining the swamp, like in his mind, that is an authentic argument that he's making. And so I think like thinking about this in terms of like, why does this resonate with people? I think it resonates because it's authentic for him. And when you see somebody like a Cuomo, try to like uh replicate a Mamdani like style video where he's like helping some guy jump his car and talking about like, how's your life in the city, how are you holding up, it like isn't authentic, it isn't
But he was
like
authentic in 2020 when he was an exasperated old man talking about COVID. People loved that because it was authentic to him.
yeah,
Like
again,
there's a yeah.
what authenticity, like authenticity doesn't necessarily mean like good, it just means like you believe the person
My
and
point is that
whatever.
there's an authentic lane for everybody. You quote
Yes,
his
yes.
lane.
And this again goes to Rachel's point about like it's not about copying Mamdani, it's about using sort of the core, like those core things of messaging, of reaching people, of showing up where they are, but in a way that is authentic to you, right? And that isn't being Mamdani 2.0, that's being who you are, but using these resources, using these kinds of people, experts, consultants that can help you tell that story effectively, right? That can like help you come up with that creative for what makes you resonate with people. And it won't be exactly what Mamdani is. It'll hopefully be whatever that candidate is. But if you're trying to sort of construct yourself in an artificial way, like that will, I think that's where people fall flat. Like again, not to beat this example to death, but the couple times in the latter stages of that mayoral race where Cuomo was trying to make sort of his Mamdani videos, it was like borderline an SNL sketch, because it was just trying so hard to sort of be this man on the street, everyman guy who like clearly hasn't been in New York City for any amount of time to really like understand what people are going through. And the last thing I'll add here is like the other piece of this too, which Mamdani did well, which people should replicate, is he started from a standpoint of listening, right? He was going around asking people about their experience in New York, why they were struggling, what was so hard, and it sort of really created the foundation for him to have this platform, because he said, this is what people are struggling with and this is how I'm going to sort of solve for that. And so listening to people, I think is a great place to start too, just to throw that in there. at the end.
I think Cuomo authentically could have come off as an asshole, and it could work because if you find the right consultants and framing, and now he's more of a Larry David Bourdain style person exploring the best cheese, eggs, and bacons of Staten Island, then like, lean into it.
Get
But
him a CNN show. One of
yeah,
those evil Longoria things.
Yeah,
exactly.
nice.
Yeah, I wish groping multiple women meant that he was off the table if none of this was possible. But if he's
Yeah,
going to stay on the
that's
table
a
as a candidate, then sure, all
there
this
is
makes sense.
that. This he was the mere fact that like some like jaded millionaire billionaire people thought that he was their best bet at given
God.
his track record is wild. And
There used to be
it
things
There
that
will
were
always be people like
disqualifying.
that. That status Cuomo was safe. They thought this is what can win. I'd take this guy being an egotistical, like, front against Donald. Like he
Yeah.
was a handsy governor and he killed my grandfather in COVID. So I was inclined to not want to vote for him, but I was still like, I'll accept this as a consequence. And that's
That's
just where we
true.
are in terms of state of play.
all
Is
right.
that true?
He didn't single-handedly do that, but yes, his policies were very much
Cuomo
leading.
wasn't in the
S-
hospital room. I
yeah, I
agree.
know, I know, I know. But
He
Josh,
didn't
sorry to
put
hear
the
that.
pillow over.
Sorry to hear
Yeah,
that. Zach.
Okay.
yeah,
Geez.
David.
All right. On that note, I think let's move on to the next question. This one is a good one, I think, for this group. This one comes to us from Jonathan. How can I convince campaigns to allocate appropriate resources to social media outreach messaging? What should a fully resourced social team look like on a political campaign? We've touched on this a bunch already. I feel like this is a great one for Rachel to tee off and we'll take it from there. Rachel, what do you think?
I think in terms of convincing, I mean, God, if I'm not trying to figure this out every day of my life right now. So I don't want to claim to have the answers, but I do think some of the things that are effective are some of the data points that Josh alluded to earlier. When you just look at numbers, like I'm working with a congressional campaign right now that regularly, if not several times a week, just like the quick and dirty videos that they're publishing with the candidate are reaching over 45,000 people, just like consistently now. And then you compare that to the staff time it takes for organizers to talk to 45,000 people, or you compare that to the reach of op-eds of legacy media, if you can actually get people to look at some of the numbers, it's much easier to convince people that, okay, this isn't just like a silly like tactic. This is like a real central strategy. For how we can actually really talk to people at scale.
Mhm.
And then
Can I
that,
ask you a question on that real quick, Rachel?
please.
There's a book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, but he talks about opting in versus opting out as a heuristic for the way people think. Do you think that people have to opt out of field, but they have to opt in to it's a harder barrier to opt into something than opt out of something. So like field, they feel is set. That it's set and it's a big decision to opt out, and it's a big decision to opt in to social. You
I
catching my
agree
drift
that
here?
that's like totally sort of the current mindset, but I think that's like a cultural thing. I think one of the legacies of the Obama campaigns was this, field is gospel kind of belief. And I think we have invested. I mean, I was at the Higher Ground Labs 2024 debrief in January of this year. And, there are really smart, thoughtful people who shared some data with us about, the last decade. The Democratic Party has made significant investments in data and technology in support of organizing, right? Like, so it's
Mhm.
not like our party hasn't made investments. We just made them in support of organizing because we have this culture that if it's not logged in van, it's not real data, right? And so, Tommy, what you're talking about, I do think that's how most people emotionally experience this is like, oh, you're asking me to do something new and different. And I don't know the data, even though like we're drowning in data with social media, it's just not voter contact data that people know how to like track and model and all this, but they're spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on reaching people with those tactics. But when we ask them to reach people with these tactics, it feels risky. I do think that's like kind of a
To close the
cultural
loop on
thing.
my point, when they changed in certain states organ donation to an opt-out system, everyone donates their organs because it's a bigger
Yeah.
leap to opt out. So what we need to do, what we're working on, is convincing people to make the standard have a robust
Right.
social team.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I do think like the main obstacle, like I will have in-depth, lengthy conversations with smart people who get all of this. And there is still like this final hurdle that people are having a hard time clearing, which is like it does mean budgeting differently. It
Right.
does mean hiring staff differently. And that is the part where people feel scared and like where things stop.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it digital versus field. I am
No,
an
no.
online to offline organizer at heart, and I will live in a trailer park outside Oshkosh waiting for Tammy Baldwin and Joe Biden to show up. Living in that
Too
lifestyle
real.
takes so much, and it's highly specific. But the correct fight I will take on all day is the heinous amount spent on putting 30 seconds during NCIS that is going to be like you take a fraction, you take a third of that and make that your digital program on a lot of these. And people feeling like they have to keep the powder dry until the last 6 weeks to inundate
Yes.
on TV instead of nurturing every single day before, during, and after your announcement online. And so, what's that look like to answer the question of Jonathan? I think it's like, I really want to see more digital press secretaries, people who don't know, who know not how to talk to people, not just that are, journalists, editors, and chiefs, but we're constantly pitching podcasts, and we are constantly interacting with local and national influencers and finding ways that are not terribly lame to insert our message and our people into their programs and coming proactively in that way. And then, yes, what is that internal content production team? And can both of those people not be, fleeced with the idea that they have to solely do all your digital fundraising and make your program work so that you can pay the admin, instead of investing more into them and their team? Um, and then, on the digital organizing side, it is, how do you take ManyChat and other tools that we have invested in for, growing the online audience and, working the van and working call time in a new way, or phone banking in more dynamic ways with all these new tools and ways, because it is really weird to like knock on someone's door, and you should do it. But now that the milkman doesn't do it, and the only other people are Jehovah's Witnesses, most people don't even want like your Prime box to not just like sit on a stoop. They don't want to interact with anyone. So getting past that barrier should be the question we need to figure out in the field. And this is a good way to be a draw instead of pushing something on people's doors. And then we can talk about direct mail as well.
Yeah. There's a novel idea here to
Yeah.
plug novel messaging. But yeah, the powder dry thing to me is just like because we literally saw it happen in 2024, where like this, avalanche of investment that came in the sort of the last weeks of that campaign, that so much of that money could have been well spent, or just some of that money could have been well spent months earlier doing the work of building out that sort of that consistency and building out that reach to get to those people, which Rachel, you sort of made this point earlier. We saw them make that investment on the right.
Mhm.
Trump was showing up on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and everybody's like, whoa, like that's weird, why would he go there? It's like, well, he's going there because there's a large audience of people that are gettable for him in that space, and people are thinking in those terms, and there's more there obviously to unpack, but I you know we've talked about this in terms of like an always on
Yeah.
strategy, and that means not a couple of weeks or months before election day. That means now, like we're talking about getting into 2026 now, like make the investment now, start hiring the people, finding the people, building your team, developing the strategy, building that consistency, Josh, that you're talking about. Like now, don't try to do it, because the amount of money it will take to break through in the, when you're just starting in October or late September is infinitely more than if you've done the work and you've sort of built that consistency and built that reach, now. And so
Can I
I
ask a
think,
question?
yeah.
I continue to parse the psychology because I don't actually know
Oh, I
anything.
love this. I mean,
Um,
this is like your new role for the show. You're like
I don't
my
know anything, so I'm just asking questions
no,
to
you're
experts.
what's his name on Conan's
Andy Richter
yeah, you're like my Andy
who
Richter.
won
You're coming in
Jeopardy.
there with these questions to just like
Yeah,
elevate the conversation further.
I'm just asking questions. I'm also like Joe Rogan. No, risk aversion is a big. People are much more risk averse than they are. Like they'd much rather not lose something than gain something. And because I'm just going to parse the psychology here. In especially the lower tiers, campaign managers tend to be younger. It's a great job for a 20-something-year-old, but often you don't hand a full organization to a 20-something-year-old. And your what is it? Your GC, your general consultant tends to be older, and that they probably support the standard old democratic media model. And you're 24, you're like you kind of lean toward that. And on a psychological level, you're just a young person looking your next job. You don't want to blow this org, and you could either take the risky bet, what we're saying is risky is doing the old model, which we know doesn't work, but it's the thing that everyone does, so it's actually in your mind like not risky.
Yep.
Then I jump over to the Republicans. Trump came in and wiped out the whole Republican Guard, so they don't have like the whole. Uh, I'm going to use a very dumb analogy here, but I grew up in a nice little town, but my parents got divorced, and there was some craziness, and because of that, we were able to kind of take less conventional paths in our lives, me and my siblings. And I feel like that's the Trump Republican orbit is like chaos was introduced into their orbit.
Mm.
The structure is gone, and they can be more risk averse and just kind of try new things in a way that we sort of can't because we're stuck thinking about the Obama era.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, but I also think like the path forward is right in front of us, and I frankly am a little frustrated at our slowness to grab onto it because yeah, like digital isn't new. Like there are a lot of us who have been doing this professionally in campaign contexts our entire adult careers. Like I'm not a 20 something. I'm very much
Yeah.
not I have a 10-year-old and a mortgage. I am very much middle-aged, and like the idea that they're like the investing in this means handing over the keys to something high stakes to a 20-year-old is the problem. Like no,
Yeah.
there's an entire industry of professionals with experience. The problem is like I had to start my own business because none of the establishment businesses want people like me. Josh, you do a lot of work independently. Like all of
Good
the people with
political.
this
I am
knowledge are not
unemployable
being
otherwise.
embraced.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, Good Political is my creative collective, and yeah, we're a merry band of creative mercenaries who do this stuff largely just the last 6 weeks because they finally have the budget and figured out that they want everything, and we reverse engineer your entire comm strategy. And yeah, it's very hard for me to get a real ass job in any discernible way because it's not understood.
What's
But
Right.
stopping
And
us?
and it's, I just want to say too, like in every other lane of campaigning, it's very common for there to be less experienced full-time staffer on the ground and an outside consultant with experience who advises them. It's very common to have a comms director and comms consultants, a finance director and finance consultants. We are still right now fighting to get full-time social media managers as staff, and we haven't even yet really broached budgeting for social media consultants or social media video consulting, which is what Zoran's team really functionally had. And so, and a lot of that is because our establishment, the giant legacy agencies, the party infrastructure has not pushed for this. And so a lot of us who have these skills are kind of like mercenaries out on our own when we really should be leading teams and departments and building out our own offering. But like I think it's just a marker of like how we don't have the staff infrastructure because we aren't building it and we aren't embracing this and investing in it.
And my not so hot take is these GCs, these consultants, if you have no working knowledge of how to communicate with people online at this point, that's criminal
Amen.
negligence, right?
Amen.
Like this is
It's
not
not cute
on
anymore,
us.
guys.
Yeah. And
It's not
so
cute.
to what you were saying earlier, yes, it is easier to not change and do the same thing. You don't lose the job for doing the same thing that everyone else did. And so while you have folks on the inside who think they're the hero, who are like clinging to their mediocrity for dear life on the scraps of like these institutions we have left. Like, I find the most exciting stuff right now working with new candidates, new causes, new campaigns that are going to be more risk tolerant because they haven't done it before and are going to empower a 24-year-old or whoever, recognizing that every like campaign manager in the history of all time has at best had 70% of the skills needed to do that job. And the people who are best at doing it are probably digital leads because they've had to fundraise, they've had to communicate, they've had to organize. We are the ones who actually can, wear all the hats. And then that becomes hard for us to then be rewarded, I guess, by then having to manage 500 people doing that, which is a different job, or continue to do it with zero resources and like have somebody kind of holding us back, being the gatekeeper of like just letting us cook.
Can we
Yeah,
solve the problem on this call? What's the solution? Like, if
This is
Trump was
how
the
the
wrecking
conversation
ball
Rachel,
goes every
chaotic,
time. I don't know. It's like someone needs to create the space by doing the hard thing and conquering within the communications lane or the campaign manager lane to then empower everyone else who will work with them to like, own their niche, improve their lane. Because yeah, I think just classically in political spaces, outside of DC, a lot of people don't have employable like skill sets. And these like marketing experts do not come out of DC and then go in to like make the Got Milk campaign. So I like would love to see, because of the necessity, a lot of people stepping up from other sectors and then yeah, joining in this. Yeah.
yeah, I think we do need to put different people in positions of leadership.
Mhm.
Like that's like we need different voices at the leadership table. And to kind of just like underscore, when a majority of US adults, 54%, report social media as their main source of news and information, which is where we are in
Yep.
2025, it is not cute, let alone appropriate. It is professional negligence if people at the leadership table still openly, proudly say, "Oh yeah, I don't even use social." Like that's the equivalent of saying like I don't read the news. Like you
I live
can't
in a
do
hole.
your job well. You are not equipped to do your job well if you don't understand these spaces. It should be a
We
requisite. And if you don't personally, then you especially need other people at the leadership table with you who do, and you need to trust and empower them. It's really, I think it starts there. It starts with different budget structures.
Mhm.
Um, you know, there's a lot of like ticky tacky things, but really, if the right people aren't in the room, none of it's going to get done.
well, if I posit that Trump was this big wrecking ball, chaotic divorce situation that caused the Republicans to have to change the plan, it sounds like what you two are saying. Perhaps at the lowest levels of our campaigns, if we start making these changes, it might bubble up to the top.
Well, I think it has,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it
and
doesn't have to
it's
be a Zoran. I think what we're talking about is structural campaign change and the old guard, just like our octogenarian candidates, we need the septuagenarians to get out of the way from the, like
Time will
bloated.
eventually handle that.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Time
I would
will,
just
but we don't have the time. I don't know.
I would argue that that happened. We saw that happen for like the Obama generation in '08, that sort of shift, and it hasn't sort of from the perspective of the top has not happened organically since, and we need to get to that where you do have that change with the decision makers, because I think part of my little frustration within the context of this conversation is always this idea of like, what does it mean? What does digital mean? And all of these things. And it's like, digital is everything. And
The water we
it
swim in.
is your, the way you talk about it and think about it shouldn't be this sort of like, oh, digital first or this. No, it's digital is everything. And you need to be prioritizing what makes up the sort of the meat of that now in this modern ecosystem, which to Rachel's point is YouTube. It are these platforms, all of this stuff. So yeah, it is wild to me that sometimes we still have to contend with this idea of like, oh, we'll do that investment later, or we'll build to that, when it's like, no, this is the starting point. And like all of these things should inform the decision making in the field and these other places, like because people live in the digital space, like we
Yeah,
are.
I also just want to say here, like, we know what the answers are, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of really smart people with the answers. The problem is no one's listening to them or doing it. Like that's actually like that's
Well,
the
the
ugly
ones,
truth.
yeah, on the decision making side,
Yeah.
100%. I think
Yeah.
we can find a lot of community and agreement in like the people that are living in these spaces and understand the value and power.
Mhm.
But there are still a lot of gatekeepers that are not sort of
Mhm.
valuing it on that level. I think they recognize it at least now, to some degree, but the value, you can see the value by the investment, right? Like where is the investment going? Last cycle we had hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on sort of these like sort of classic strategies around message testing and building towards these sort of ad pushes, and that should have been, there should have been a broader strategy. Anyway, I digress. We are at an hour. I failed in my attempt to keep the show under an hour. So I appreciate Josh, Rachel, Tommy. I appreciate you guys sticking around. I do want to give everybody a chance here to sort of promote some of the things you all are doing, because they are really, really cool and interesting things. Rachel, you touched on it earlier. Novel Ideas podcast is a great podcast. If you're not listening to it already, you should do so. She's had a great slate of guests there. They're all available online on all your podcasting platforms and all those things. But Rachel, I'll let you speak to that, and then Josh, I'm gonna tee you up as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this conversation and you feel like you're yelling at your device saying yes, then you might enjoy our 8 episode season of Novel Ideas. Maybe the easiest place, we're on YouTube and all the things, but we also have a Substack where all the episodes are curated.
Right.
So it's novelmessaging.substack.com. And there's like a lot of great guests, and we're going to try and publish this episode so it can live in that collection. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting and smart people who we've had the good fortune to talk to, who are working at this and coming and trying to help our party do this better from a bunch of different angles. And like I have left that work, the last year of talking to folks, feeling both inspired by how much talent exists and how many answers we already do have, but then also kind of equally frustrated that we can't seem to like put it into practice the way I would like it. But I do think there will come a turning point very soon where, you know, maybe us millennials will maybe rise and some things might change, and hopefully we'll see some better results.
Just in time to be replaced by our AI selves
I
in the
know,
not so
I
distant
know.
future. Josh, you have a bunch of stuff you've got
Sure.
going on, launching a show and many other things. But what do you want to sort of tell us about here at the end?
Yeah, I'll be economic with it, but yeah, I'm big on show not tell, which is why I ran for vice chair at the top of the year to tell the Democratic establishment that they all suck at the internet. And so I'm modeling the Joe Rogan of the left by I have a podcast called Trivial, which is basically a bar trivia night in a podcast that's streaming on Rumble and through social and wherever you actually listen to things. And also, I just launched Tomorrow Today, which is my digitally native late night show detailing a positive future, offering a little hope and a lot of funny business. And the first episode is depoliticizing EVs in a post-Musk era. So please check that out on YouTube. And I am at jburst on just about everything.
Nice. Thank you. And Tommy obviously is available anytime you want here at Hardpin for your production needs
Or
everything
psychology
else.
questions.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
psychology questions.
really, devil's advocacy.
And also obviously spends a healthy amount of time over on the novel side of things, supporting content creation there.
I have
So
nothing to plug. I've got nothing going on.
you are plugging away on a lot of projects. That's what you're doing.
That's-
And thank you again for taking the time to join this group for this really great discussion. And really want to just thank everybody behind the scenes too. Russ, who he's not on this show today. Sometimes he wears many hats. He's wearing still very many hats in distribution, managing the tech stack, all of the stuff. Is probably just pulling levers and spinning in circles in the background here, but he does a wonderful job building this out for us in the background. Josh, our talented director of production, who's switching the show today. Matt, who handled curating our questions, and is another one of our talented supervising producers here at Hardpin, and everybody else who's had an impact here. Will designs our graphics and does a wonderful job of building these sort of templates. This was a great first season. I'm excited to figure out if this will come back the same, different, sort of evolve it forward. But it was excited to sort of dabble in this vertical version of the show. Definitely a very different experience visually, but excited to see how it shows up on the socials. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a great holiday, folks, and we'll see you on the other side. 2026 approaching fast. Many things to do, and good luck to us all. May we all someday have a plaque in the White House, written by Donald J. Trump, that tells our tale. Thank you, and have a good night.